Welcome back, guys. In this episode, we're going to be finishing up the top end of the engine. So that means camshafts, cam sprockets, timing chain, all the internal oil pipes, and anything else that we need to finish this up. Now, unfortunately, during the filming of this episode, I actually found out a couple pieces were broken. So, the parts are finally here from eBay, and now we have everything that we need to finish up the top end of this engine. So, let's get started. In this episode, we will finish up the top end. To start off, we will begin by bleeding the hydraulic tappets. This engine has a great feature of self-adjusting valves via the hydraulic tappets, which is great since you don't have to manually adjust them as they wear. In order to bleed them, you must do so with them upright in kerosene. I didn't have any kerosene, and since it's not grilling season anymore, I had to go to wonderful Walmart to pick some up. When bleeding, ensure the tappet is completely submerged. Since I do not have the special tool to do this, Climber recommends using the flat shank end of a 3/16 inch drill bit. Then, using a block of wood, depress the drill bit into the tappet to bleed it and get the old oil out at about 1 cycle per second. In this clip, you can actually see the old oil coming out into the solution. About halfway through, I need to change out the dirty kerosene for some fresh kerosene. Once all the tappets have been bled and placed into their respective spots in the valve assembly, ensure you just drop the rocker arms in all willy-nilly inside to ensure their safe placement. Each tappet is mated with a rocker, so be sure you keep track of which one goes where. Up next is the rocker arm holders, with a pair being labeled left and a pair being labeled right. For this engine, you can't really mess this up since they only go in one way. After the holders, I cover up the camshaft in some of that molybdenum disulfide grease. The manual says to do this, since it can help on first startup to make sure it doesn't score itself when there is no oil in the engine yet. Once both camshafts are in, the sprockets must go in as well. After the sprockets are in, the cam hold-down journals can be installed. I accidentally installed the wrong side at some point, so I needed to pull off the hold-downs on the left side of the camshaft and install the right side instead. This is so you have enough clearance to get the bolts through and tighten down. After installing these journals, the manual says to pour some oil into these holes and make sure air bubbles stop coming out. I did this a few times over the next few minutes and made sure to spill plenty of oil all over the place. After that and cleaning up the surfaces, the internal oil rails get installed. In my gasket kit, I received new O-rings for these, so it's always a good idea to replace them if you can. The rails only go in one side, so try not to force it in, otherwise you might kink a pipe and then you're up a creek without a paddle. After installing the pipes, next comes the very important task of getting the sprockets installed correctly. I can't stress enough how important it is to have the sprockets in this engine, or really any engine for that matter, installed to the correct timing. In my manual, it says to take the engine to top dead center and then have each sprocket with the up facing in the up position. Then each sprocket is engraved with an in for intake and EX for exhaust, and these have lines engraved underneath them. These lines must line up with the flat surface of the top of the valve assembly. If either isn't facing the correct direction or is slightly off, there could be some serious timing issues inside the engine and with the valves. I have a picture here to hopefully show clear enough what I'm talking about. After getting the timing set, I use Loctite to set the mounting bolts for the sprockets. These then get torqued down to spec. During the finishing touches, I then noticed one of these oil caps gaskets were busted. I then scoured eBay and happened to find a replacement part. Notice how the replacement part doesn't have a small hole on the top. I'm not sure why newer versions of this part don't have a hole, but there must be some logic behind it. All the online resources I saw list this part number as the replacement. After placing the replacement part on, I then add some assembly lube to the camshaft. I'm not sure what happened to the stuff I put on before, but you can never be too cheap with this stuff. One thing I wanted to highlight here was don't forget to reset the cam tensioner. I'm not sure if this automatically resets itself when the engine turns over at high speeds. I couldn't really find anything online about this. So, just to be safe, I removed the plate in the way and reset the pin, which you can see in this picture. Improper chain slack could seriously damage the engine, so don't forget this. Then, it's just a matter of installing the cover and torquing the bolts down. After long last, the top end is finally done. Just like the man says, we're finally done with the top end of the engine, and the bulk of the engine itself. This probably took about a year to get around to doing. From lack of motivation, to waiting on parts, to any other number of excuses, this did take a while. After this, I took a few minutes to clean up and polish some external parts. You can see here in this picture the lower cover, which says Honda, has some corrosion and buildup on it. Whereas now, in this picture, it's all polished up and looks great. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to keep up to date with new episodes. Thanks for watching.